Wow. First and foremost, I just want to say thank you to everyone who gave the last video all the love it got. To say the least, this was unexpected, but I am so grateful that this story of mine was able to connect with so many people the way it did. And, yeah, I'm just happy. What else can I say? This lonely, lonely phone, which I assumed only me and my friends would know about, is now a little less lonely. Or is it? One day, a friend of mine who was there when the phone was discovered decided to take a trip to Toronto, a city which neighbors my own. And he texts me this.
There's a phone booth at Spadina TTC station with the same 2011 message on the Line 1 platform.
A couple days earlier, I went to my local shit mall with another friend and found two more phones. Eventually, I found two more at a mall which was the furthest thing from dead, two more in another subway station, and two more, again, with the exact same message in a courthouse. A perfectly functioning, updated courthouse had messages on its phones from the year 2011. Mind you, all of these phones were found in different cities I would consider to be quite different. They're all around the same general area, even as big as it is, so I guess it does make some sense, until yet another friend of mine found one in Montreal, Quebec, an entirely different province. Well, for starters, I was wrong about the language used in the text. It for sure is written in a way which implies something is about to happen in the future, which is why I assumed it was out of date because it's from 2011. And like any regular person, I'd be questioning why that's still there since 2011 was well over a decade ago. Maybe it costs money to remove them, so companies figured why not just keep them and not waste the money? But this begs the question of what if the opposite is true? What if it costs money to even keep them there? Wouldn't they want to get rid of this extra expense? Unless, of course, Wimectel Inc. did take over operations run by Bell on these payphones and has been doing so since 2011. So I did some digging and I ended up uncovering something far more sinister than I ever would have expected. The first thing I found was an article from a woman who talks about how she was charged $156.66 for a series of calls between her and her son, which compared to before was an absolutely ridiculous amount for something coming from a payphone. The final rack-up charge would essentially mean that she was getting charged $10 per minute of the phone calls. As ridiculous as this is, it only gets worse from there.
Okay, so I noticed my bill was $4.35 more than usual. It said that the charge was a long distance call. Interesting, because I don't have a phone service with them. I called, and Bell said, "Oh yes, that is not a legitimate charge. We will refund it." I thought, okay, cool, and moved on. Next month, same thing. Called again, and after pressuring them, they said it was from Wimectel. Those scummy bastards who charge you $30 for a 2-minute payphone call. Anyway, apparently they are allowed to just charge any phone number a fee, and then they get paid that amount if the customer pays their bill. If the customer notices, the charge disappears. This, I was told, was Canadian law that Bell allows outside companies to randomly charge their clients, and that I have to call anytime I see the charge as they can't stop it, even though I do not have phone service with them. I did call Wimactel, and of course, their scummy reps do not see any charges to my number and would not allow me to speak to a supervisor or manager, but wanted me to send my name, number, and account details to them. Yeah, right. So be aware, everyone. Check your bills and make sure you aren't lining the pockets of this quote unquote company, who, by the way, is run by an ex VP of Nortel.
More on that last part in a bit because it's important, but there are dozens of complaints like this which Wimectel responds to the way OP says they do. The charges also increase in amount, often reaching hundreds of dollars. Many of these complaints list charges for calls made after midnight, often within the offices of small businesses, where no one would even be present at the time to make the call. These charges can also date back years. It's clear that they're fraudulent, and when these complaints are brought up, Wimectel always walks around in their answer, like Like OP stated, if they're caught and they resolve the issue. But other times when users ask for proof of phone calls being made, they always without fail walk around providing proof.
Moreover, they don't guarantee that situations like these won't happen again.
Alright, now let's circle back to the company mentioned by OP, Nortel. Nortel started in 1895 as Northern Electric in Montreal, eventually evolving into a global pioneer of fiber optics and digital switching. By the late 1990s, they were violently successful, fueling the rapid growth of the early internet. At its peak in 2000, Nortel employed over 94,000 people and had a market value of near 300 billion, single-handedly accounting for more than one-third of the entire Toronto Stock Exchange. The company's downfall began when the dot-com bubble burst, exposing billions of dollars in bad acquisitions and heavy corporate debt. The financial strain worsened by a massive accounting fraud scandal in 2003, which shattered investor trust and triggered waves of lawsuits. Unable to recover, Nortel filed for bankruptcy in 2009, marking the largest corporate failure in Canadian history and leading to a massive liquidation of its valuable tech patents to rivals like Apple and Microsoft. And, as mentioned earlier, their former vice president just so happens to be the CEO of Wimactel, Inc. So it's clear the initial payphone isn't exactly what I thought it would be, so if that's the case, then what does all of this even mean? Well, I was able to find an article from 2012 about a protest filed by a advocacy group against Bell for supposedly violating telecommunications rules by outsourcing operator-assisted payphone calls to Wimactel Inc.,
who proceeded to then raise the prices by a ridiculous amount.
By the way the article's written, it clearly implies that all Bell payphones display the 2011 message. From my experience, this isn't true as of 2026, but maybe it was true in 2012, which makes this all the more interesting.
And when I say all, I really do mean potentially all in Canada. I mean, this article is from Ottawa, and given all the evidence we have, that's the only natural conclusion I can draw.
Now, this protest was an official complaint filed to the CRTC, and they found that Bell Canada had not broken telecommunication rules by using Wimactel, but it required Bell to improve consumer disclosures and operator procedures and agreed to review whether Canada's payphone consumer protections needed updating.
And it's clear, especially given that the message on the payphone itself hasn't even been changed since 2011, that none of these changes were actually made. Most of the complaints I listed earlier come from 2026, 2025. It's all recent stuff.
So to answer the question of what all this means, I've come up with a few theories. One answer is that both companies are run by shady people, and maybe the scummy and scammy practices of Wimactel give Bell an extra buck. Mind you, all of these payphones are branded with Bell. To circle back to a theory I proposed in my previous video, what if there is a vengeful spirit trapped within these phones, and its way of taking its revenge on humanity is by making these scam phone calls and charging people excess amounts of money? And maybe Wimactel and Bell are deciding to keep this under wraps to prevent public panic over an obvious paranormal situation. Another theory, which is equally possible, is that it's not a vengeful, perhaps human soul, but a rogue AI who has turned against us. All in all, it's clear that what I once thought was a cool liminal space oddity actually ended up being something far more dangerous and sinister, which I would encourage you all to be more weary of in the future. Anyways, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and if this type of content seems like something that you'd be interested in watching, I'd suggest you subscribe because I am 100% willing to make more of it. Goodbye.